Shalom, and welcome to Hebrew Bible Secrets with your host, Rabbi Jeremy Beaton. We are reading today from the book of Matthew, starting at chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, verse 1. 1. And Yeshua went out and departed from the Beth Hamikdash, the temple. And his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the Beth Hamikdash, the temple. 2. And Yeshua said to them, Do you see all these things? Verily I say to you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming, and of the end of the age? 4. And Yeshua answered and said to them, Take heed that no man deceive ye. 5. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and shall deceive many. 6. And you shall hear of wars and rumours of wars. See that you be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and earthquakes in various places. 8. All these things are the beginning of the birth pains. 9. Then they will hand ye over to be persecuted, and shall kill ye, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. 10. And then shall many fall into sin, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. 11. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. 12. And because sin shall abound, the obedience of many shall become weak. 13. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be rescued. 14. And this Besorah of the kingdom shall be proclaimed in all the world for a witness to all nations, and then shall the end come. 15. When you therefore shall see the idolatrous object that astonishes, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the set-apart place, whosoever reads, let him understand. 16. Then let them which be in Yehudah flee into the mountains. 17. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his beth, his house. 18. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. 19. And woe to them that are with child, and to them that nurse children in those days. 20. But you yourselves petition that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, to this time, no, nor ever shall be. 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be rescued, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. 23. Then if any man shall say to you, Look, here is Messiah, or there, believe him not. 24. For there shall arise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders. It is therefore possible that they shall deceive even the elect. 25. Behold, I have told you beforehand. 26. Therefore, if they shall say to you, Behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go. Behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. 27. For just as the lightning comes out of the east, and flashes towards the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. 28. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from Shamayim, and the powers of the Shamayim shall be shaken. 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the Shamayim, in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of the Shamayim, with power and great glory. 31. And he shall send his Malachim, his angels, with a great sound of a shofar. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the Shamayim, heaven, to the other. 32. Now learn a parable of the figex, the fig tree. When its branch is yet tender, and it puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. 33. So likewise, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. 34. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass till all things are fulfilled. 35. The Shamayim and the earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. 36. But of that day and hour knows no man, no, not Malachim, not angels of the heavens, nor the Son, but the Av only, the Father only. 37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. 38. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. 39. And knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. 40. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. 41. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. 42. Watch therefore, for you know not what day your master Adon Lord does come. 43. But know this, that if the good man of the Beth, the house, had known in what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have allowed his Beth, his house, to be broken up. 44. Therefore be yourselves also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. 45. Who then is a trustworthy and wise servant, whom his master has made ruler over his household, to give them food in due season? 46. Blessed is that servant, whom his master, when he comes, shall find so doing. 47. Verily I say to you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. 48. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my master delays. 49. And shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunkards. 50. The master of that servant shall come in a day when he looks not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of. 51. And shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, so that now brings us to the end of chapter 24. So let's have a look at some of the footnotes in chapter 24. Okay, so the first footnote we have is in verse 2. And Yahushua said to them, do you see all these things? Verily I say to you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So let's have a look at this thrown down. So as Yahushua's prophecy, the Beth Hamidash, the temple, was burnt, and every stone turned to dig the gold that went inside the stones, or to dig out the gold that went inside the stones by the Roman armies. Okay, so the next footnote we have is in verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of your coming, and of the end of the age? Okay, so let's have a look at this. So the term is end of the age because another age starts with the millennial kingdom of 1,000 years reign. So the translations that say the end of the world are wrong, as this is not the end of the world. The world will continue. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 4. And Yahshua answered and said to them, take heed that no man deceive ye. So let's have a look at this. That no man deceive ye. Many people are taught the error and deception of a pre-tribulation rapture, while Yahshua warns, do not be deceived by any man. That does include pastors, teachers of all sorts. Okay, so this whole idea of pre-tribulation rapture is a false doctrine. Okay, so this is what we're saying here also. What that Yahshua, Jesus was telling you, be not deceived. Okay, so the idea that Yahshua is telling you is to return back to the commandments, keep the commandments, and don't follow after these false doctrines of pre-tribulation. Okay, pre-tribulation rapture. Okay, so the next footnote we have is in verse 5. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah. So let's have a look at this quickly. I am Messiah. So many in Islam will rise and say Muhammad is the only way to Shamayim, to heaven, and will deceive many others. The word Mashiach means the anointed one, and this claim will be usurped by the Islamists as the ones fighting for their anointed one. The whole of Matthew 24 is geared towards Islam and not some other idea of men. Watch and read carefully. It is the battle to come between the 12 tribes of Islam with the 12 tribes of Israel. A showdown of 24. Okay, so I think that's quite clear. So let's have a look at the next footnote, which is continuation. And shall deceive many. So let's have a look at this. Shall deceive many. So this is happening today with many claiming to come in his authority. So the true testimony of Yahshua is for those of us who are keeping the Torah. That is the true testimony. So if people are not coming in the Torah, they are not coming with the true testimony of Yahshua, Jesus, the Messiah. Okay? So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 6. And you shall hear of wars and rumours of wars. See that you not be troubled, for these things shall come to pass, but the end is not yet. Okay, so we have here wars and rumours of wars. So let's have a look at this quickly. So rumours of fighting with Muslim nations such as Iran. Okay, so we see that going on today. With America and Iran talking about war. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So let's have a look at this. Nation shall rise against nation. So we have here, the Islamic nations will be building up to fight Israel, and they will be fighting for control of the land of Israel. So we can also see parts of that taking place today. Let's go to the next footnote, which is a continuation. And kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and earthquakes in various places. So let's look at this word, earthquakes. So we have mostly judgment will come on Muslim nations, as we saw a huge earthquake in Pakistan in 2005 and the tsunami in Indonesia 2004. Note, Indonesia is the largest Muslim nation in the world. This does not mean that the European nations will escape judgment, but it means all nations partaking and helping the Islamic nations against Israel will have received their fair share. Okay, so this is about judgment on other nations, Islamic nations, who will come against Israel in the future as well. Okay, so the next footnote we have is in verse 9. Then they will hand ye over to be persecuted and kill ye. Okay, kill you. Okay, let's have a look at this. So radical Muslims will do the killing of Christians who will be taken as hostages. Hebrew people and others who profess any kind of biblical faith will be killed by the radicals in the name of Allah also. Okay, so this is obviously, we can see this taking place as well today, but it's also going to be more prevalent in the future when the Arab nations come up against Israel. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is a continuation. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So let's have a look at this. So this is a very clear prophecy that the hatred was to come from the Islamic nations. If we look at our modern world, the majority of Hindus do not hate believers of Yahushua, of Jesus, and neither do Buddhists, but the lasting hatred was to come from Muslims. Kol Goyim in Hebrew does not mean the whole world. In context, it means the nations round about of Israel, those that form a confederacy against Israel. So we have also read Psalms 83 and see the complete work of World War III, A Mosque in the End Time Beasts by Rabbi Simon Altaf. Okay? So the email for that is www.forever-israel.com. Okay, so the next footnote we have, which is in verse 10. And then shall many fall into sin, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Okay, let's have a look at this word, hate. So believers who have gone into apostasy will hate other believers. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. False prophets or religious impostors, what we term false converts, who will actively deceive people, but many will be fooled and not know that these are deceivers out to make money or some other motive. Our religious deception will be very high, such as Islam is the only way to heaven. Even after the dual buildings collapse in the USA, Islam is growing, indicating this prophecy is coming to pass. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 12. And because sin shall abound. Okay, let's have a look at this word sin. So sin here is represented by Torahlessness. Okay, so those who aren't keeping the Torah, obviously this is what the Father and Yahushua are regarding as sin. Okay? So to avoid sin, we turn back to the commandments of the Father, Yahweh and Yahushua. Okay, so the next footnote is a continuation. Shall abound. The obedience of many shall become weak. Okay, obedience. Let's have a look at this. The word here should be obedience, and the term love, which comes from the Persian language, would be incorrect as a lust type of word. If love grows cold, it is meaningless, but obedience becoming weak is what is meant here, as we are judged by our obedience to the Torah. Okay, so obedience, you show your love by your obedience to the Torah. Okay, so the next footnote we have is in verse 13. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be rescued. Okay, so let's look at this word endure. So we have here, the idea is that those who hold strong to their faith, even after being persecuted and killed by the Islamic radicals. Okay, so even after persecution, it's about holding strong even to death, keeping testimony of Yeshua and keeping the commandments of Hashem. Okay? So the next footnote we have is in verse 15. When you therefore shall see the idolatrous object that astonishes. Okay, let's have a look at this. So this is about the coming anti-Messiah. Okay? The usage of the words in Jeremiah are literal. Yahweh will make an utter end of them by a literal flood, and this is the reason why Daniel's usage is literal and not allegorical. Most of the anti-Messiah's armies will be destroyed with a literal flood, Yahweh's system to flush the enemy. Did that happen in 70 CE? The answer is no, not yet, so it is yet future. Daniel 9:26. The end of it shall be with a flood. This reference cannot be to Daniel 9:26, but Daniel 9:27, since in Daniel 9:26 no abomination took place, but a destruction. This abomination also cannot be what Antiochus Epiphanes did, since that was way before Yahshua's time. We need to examine the only reference in Daniel regarding an abomination. Daniel 11:31, Daniel 12:11, Daniel 9:27, and Daniel 8:13. In Daniel 8:13, it is clearly regarding one horn from the Grecian four divisions of Alexander's Grecian Empire. Daniel 8:9, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great, towards the south, and towards the east, and towards the pleasant land. Then an amazing verse after it states, Daniel 8:10, and it waxed great, even to the host of Shamayim, heavens, and it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. If this is Antiochus, then how did he cast down some of the hosts of heaven to the ground, the fallen Malachim, fallen angels? This is definitely end times terminology. Also, why would Yahshua refer to a man who was long dead before Yahshua's birth? In Daniel 11:21, the man who is a type of anti-Messiah comes on the scene from the north and is believed to be Antiochus Epiphanes, who came from the Seleucid division, one of the four divisions of the Grecian Empire. But Yahushua in Matthew 24:15 placed Daniel 11:31 into the future, pointing to the anti-Messiah as this idolatrous object that astonishes, raises a lot of questions by people before his second coming, and not in the Maccabees period. People who see this will be amazed. Is this really Israel? How can this place, which is supposed to be set apart, holy, have the mosque with Muslim idolatries here? Daniel 11:5-20 is a broad sketch of post-Grecian Empire history. Daniel 11:2-4, which leads right up to the time of the anti-Messiah, Little Horn, in Daniel 11:21. This shows to a certain degree that many prophecies of the Bible have a type of fulfillment, Antiochus being an excellent example. We must never assume that the Bible is all history. So, the confirmation of Yahshua's simple scheme for the future is found in Daniel. Here, we follow Yahshua's instructions carefully. The idolatrous object that astonishes is the one described by Daniel. Matthew 24:15, the precise expression, idolatrous object that astonishes. The KJV uses abomination, that makes desolate, which hardly makes sense, occurs in Daniel 11:31, with a further reference to its appearance in the set-apart place in Daniel 12:11 and Daniel 9:27. Also Daniel 8:13 contains the third reference. To summarize, Daniel describes a final evil ruler, the king of the north, who sets this place and puts an end to Beth Hamikdash, temple sacrifices or sacrificial offerings, Daniel 11:31. Some believe that these are already fulfilled prophecies in Daniel. It is crucially important to see that in Daniel 12:11, about 3.5 years will elapse between the appearance of the idolatrous object that astonishes and the end of the age. Yahshua is merely elaborating in Matthew 24 what was already laid out by Daniel's idolatrous object that astonishes. Daniel 11:31, Matthew 24:15. Tribulation for 3.5 years. Daniel 12:1-7 and 11. And then the resurrection. Daniel 12:2. The whole of Daniel 11 and 12 must be read in its entirety, and the Daniel passage must be kept in mind as the background to Yahshua's discourse in Matthew 24:3. The connection between Matthew 24:15 and Daniel 11:31 and 12:11 is established by Yahshua's own words. Let the reader understand that I am referring to the book of Daniel. See Matthew 24:15. Remember, the one key to Matthew 24, the tribulation of which Yahshua spoke, is to be followed immediately by cosmic signs and the second coming. The tribulation is to be triggered by the idolatrous object that astonishes, already prophesied by Daniel 11:31. When these facts are held together, they build up a composite picture of events destined to happen just before Yahshua arrives. So, in accordance with Matthew 24, we must conclude that the anti-Messiah, as the Bible states, is Middle Eastern in Daniel 8 and 9, and is from one of the prominent horns came a small horn, whose power grew very great. It extended towards the south and the east, and towards the glorious land of Israel. He must come from the Grecian part of this Roman Empire, i.e., the eastern part. Remember that the previous territories of future empires superimpose the previous empires, so they may govern some regions of the previous empires and may not rule other regions of the previous empire. Since he is going south, he must be coming from the north parts in relation to Israel, exactly as specified in Ezekiel 38, Joel 3, and many other places. Antiochus in Daniel 8 is the forerunner of a prefiguring of the anti-Messiah, linking him to the Grecian Empire rather than the prince to come in Daniel 9:26. The 69 weeks is completely fulfilled with no connection in the passage or chapter to this prince to come, to the final remaining week, since it is preserved by Messiah for the little horn, referred to in Daniel 8 and 11. Also in Daniel chapter 11 and Matthew 24. They both agree that the Beth Hamidash, the temple, is desecrated and not destroyed. But in Daniel 9, it's completely destroyed. So the short-term fulfillment of the destruction of the Beth Hamidash, the temple, in Daniel 9, cannot be the same as the idolatrous object that astonishes by the little horn of Daniel 8 and 11. From the pages of World War III, I'm Masking the End Times Peace by Rabbi Simon Altaf. Okay, so there are many references there in regarding to these footnotes, so I suggest you have a look at some of the references and you will have more understanding. Okay, so the next footnote is in verse 15. And when you therefore shall see the idolatrous objects that astonishes, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the set apart place, whoso reads, let him understand. Okay, so let's have a look at this quickly. So, metaphoric, to know that the time spoken by Daniel is upon us. We are to stand, the mosque is there now, so we know the time is close. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 16. Then let him which be in Yehuda flee into the mountains. Okay, so let's have a look at this. This is a dual command here. Not just to flee to the literal stony mountains, but to other nations and mingle with them until the time the Messiah himself would take us back. This also agrees with the rabbinic opinion that we are not to return to the land until Elohim brings us back. We are forbidden to migrate to the land until Yahweh brings us together in the second Exodus. Any individual or mass exodus by human effort is forbidden. We can visit the land from our prospective nations as many times as we like, but we cannot take part in governance of the land or with governments until the full restoration. It is my opinion that anyone who dares to break the commandment will suffer the effects of the oath, which will become a curse against us, leading to some of the believers being killed and hunted down by radicals. The craze amongst Christians to go and live in the land and then to support governments which are secular is anathema and against the Abba's will in heaven. Yahweh's government will only be Torah-based and not even 1% secular. See Songs of Solomon 2 and 7. Okay, have a look at Songs of Solomon for more understanding there. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 20. But you yourselves petition that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. So let's have a look at this Sabbath day. So people will be keeping the Sabbath as it is set apart and for all times. It is Saturday sunrise to Saturday sunset. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor even shall be. Okay, let's have a look at this word tribulation. The radical Islamists will go on a killing rampage that has never been seen before. Okay, so this is what it means. For then shall be great tribulation. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be rescued, but for the elect's sake. Okay, let's have a look at this. For the elect's sake. All 12 tribes of Israel are elected to take part in the end of days. This will include both Judah and Benjamin in Israel and Christendom, which is the prophetic Ephraim. The radical Muslims will be fighting a jihad against the Crusaders, which they call both of these nations of the west and of Israel. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which we have in verse 24. For there shall arise messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders. It is therefore possible that they shall deceive even the elect. So let's have a look at deceiving even the elect. Many will be fooled by calling on Allah as Yahweh. This deception is today widely prevalent in many churches. The United Church of Canada already says Muhammad is a true prophet for the Arabs. Many Christians foolishly call on Allah as Yahweh, which is blasphemous. This only applies to the false Jesus in the churches that is being used to deceive the people to disobey the Torah. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 26. Therefore, if they shall say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go. Behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. Okay, he is in the wilderness. Let's have a look at this. Yeshua tells you that they will tell you he is in the desert. What desert? The desert of Arabia. The ones telling you this, for you to go and accept Muhammad as prophet for your rescue, are the Muslims. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 27. For just as the lightning comes out of the east and flashes towards the west. So let's have a look at this word east first. This is prophetic about the east revealing the scriptures at the end of days. The true Hebraic root scriptures would shine from the east. This means that eastern nations will be side by side to bring Torah to the westerners, who would be in deep apostasy. Is it any wonder that some manuscripts evidence of the original Gospels was found in the Himalayan mountains and some Muslim nations in the east? At the end of the days, the Western nations will wane, but the Eastern ones will become more active in wanting to obey Torah. Okay, so we see that the people of the East are going to get it, they're going to understand, and have to return to the commandments, whereas the ones in the West, obviously, there will still be an apostasy. Okay, so let's carry on and let's go to a continuation, and comes out of the east and flashes towards the west. Okay, let's have a look at this, flashes towards the west. It is very interesting that the light is transitive, meaning that the Western Isles will not get the Torah obedience. Since the light flashes, this shows us that it flickers to the west. They get to know of the Torah, but do not fully get to obey his Torah. Okay, so, we've got many people with the understanding, they're coming back to, Torah, but how many of them are actually going to obey all of the commandments that we can obey? This is what we're dealing with here today. Okay, so let's have a look at the next footnote. Okay, it's in verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the Shemayim, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Okay, let's have a look at this. Tribes of the earth mourn. The 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so we're talking about the 12 tribes of Israel here. Okay, and let's go to the next footnote, which is a continuation. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of Shemayim with power and great glory. Okay, so we shall see the Son of Man coming. Okay, let's have a look at this. Coming in Jerusalem, in Israel, not in some other country, which is why the preceding footnote says all Israel will see him. Okay, so the Son of Man obviously is coming or appearing to the 12 tribes of Israel in Israel. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in 31. Verse 31, and he shall send his Malachim with a great sound of his shofar, and they shall gather together his elect. Okay, let's have a look at this word, elect. Both houses of Israel. Okay, so you're talking about all 12 tribes there of Israel, yeah? Both houses. So let's go to the next footnote. So we have 34. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass till all these things are fulfilled. So let's have a look at this. Shall not pass. In the Aramaic, the word is Shabbata, and is correctly translated in Peshitta as tribe. So we can see Yahushua was referring to the tribe of Judah, that was in the land of Israel to be dispersed and regathered for the end times. Okay, so this is future prophecy, still hasn't happened yet. So we're still waiting on the return of all the tribes. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 36. But of that day and hour knows no man, no, not the Malachim of Shemayim of heaven, nor the Son, but the Av only. So let's have a look at this. The Av only. Early manuscripts adds nor the Son. So see footnote Mark 13:32. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 40. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Okay, let's have a look at this. So this is not the rapture, but judgment. Okay, so I think as we go on, we're going to come to the understanding that this judgment obviously is going to be coming with the radical armies. Okay, so this is why one will be in the field and one will be taken. Okay, so the radicals are going to be, obviously killing people at this time. Okay, so this is what we're talking about here. So let's go to the next footnote, So verse 42, watch therefore, for you know not what day your master Adon, Lord, does come. Okay, let's have a look at this quickly. So the reading in the manuscripts is day and not hour. Okay, so that now brings us to the end of chapter 24. And I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the other side. Baruch Shem Kivod Malkuto Leolam Va'ed. Benevolent be the name of his esteemed kingdom, forever and ever and ever. Amen. Shalom, shalom.